Good afternoon. I'm Wilson Floor from Richmond 2015. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to this media briefing. Today we're going to share the economic impact of the UCI Road World Championships. And I will say it was literally 3 months ago when we opened the World Championships with close to 15,000 people down at Browns Island for our opening ceremony. And that really kicked off 9 days of racing thereafter, a tremendous amount of excitement, and a lot of visitors that came to our community. I'd like to take this time to introduce someone who really needs no introduction, probably the greatest ambassador that we have ever had to invite businesses to come to the Commonwealth and certainly invite tourists to come and enjoy everything that we have in the Commonwealth. So hopefully, Governor, with a little bit of effort and exposure from our TV, will make your job a little easier.
Thank you, Wilson. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I wanted to come by and thank Wilson and everybody for the spectacular work. I have to duck out. I have to go to Hardywood next for an event, Mayor, another great Richmond enterprise. It's not easy being governor. You have to go to all these craft breweries. I tell you, the things I got to do for this job. But I wanted to come by specifically today and thank the mayor and Wilson, the whole team, for what they did. This really was a spectacular event, not only for Richmond, but for the Commonwealth of Virginia. I was glad when the mayor asked for help. The state was able to come up with about $4 million, 2 for operational and 2 for marketing. And I can tell you, I just got back, as you all know, from an international trade mission. I went to Oman, I went to Kuwait, I went to India, and I went to Dubai and other parts of the UAE. And I got to tell you, when I travel, historically, when I say, have you ever been to Virginia, I got to explain where Virginia is to a lot of folks. I tell you, there was a sea change when I just went on this latest trade mission because everybody in the Middle East had watched this bike race. So I wanted to come by here today specifically to say thank you because it's made our job easier. In the Middle East, in India, they all watch the bike race. They love this bike race. I guess it's outside the soccer, the World Cup, it's the second most watched event that we have in the globe. And I can just tell you as governor, someone who travels, probably the most traveled governor in the country, when I travel overseas, this race has made my job so much easier to bring business to the Commonwealth of Virginia. So that is why I wanted to stop in here. I heard this was going on, and I want to thank my good friend, the mayor. You know, when you take on these big endeavors in life and politics, life has a lot of critics. But the credit goes to the gentleman who was in that arena, blood and sweat, who's out there, and this mayor did it. This was a bold challenge. Richmond had never done anything like it before in its history. And I was out, as you know, every single day. I loved it. Stopped at every beer tent along the way. I mean, it's my fault. I'm Irish. I apologize. But the crowds were excited. It was great for Richmond and great for Virginia. So thank you, Mayor, for your tremendous leadership. It turned out better than I think anyone anticipated. We had more folks than we had originally anticipated. But my message today is, as someone who travels and does business and is on the phone every day to build the global economy here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, this bike race has changed the dynamic and our ability to market the Commonwealth of Virginia. So thank you, and Mayor, it's great to be with you, and congratulations to all of you for the great work that you did. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. And the governor has done such a wonderful job of giving us the context. But just to give a little bit more context, 5 years ago, I announced that we're going to pursue the World Cycling Championships, the first time that the races would be in the United States in 30 years. And of course, there was apprehension. Some thought I'd lost my mind. But we were able to come together and put together a wonderful team after we got together with the business community that was so supportive. Tom Farrell became one of our co-chairmen, and they did a tremendous job. And you just heard from Governor McAuliffe, but before him, Governor McDonald stepped up to the plate. Governor McAuliffe really upped the ante and became the biggest cheerleader for the race and allowed the race to be presented by Virginia is for Lovers, which I think was a huge thing for us to be able to accomplish. And the numbers show that we made a pretty good profit for the state as well. I'm sorry that he left before we could tell him how much money we raised for the state in tax revenue. We faced down the doubters, and I think that the history shows that we did the right thing. 9 days of racing and exposing our city, 9 days that I really think has changed the trajectory of our city's understanding of who we are and what we can accomplish, and change the trajectory of the kinds of monumental feats we can take on when we all work together. It's no accident that Travel and Leisure has determined that we're one of the 50 places that you should visit in 2016. Number 3, as a matter of fact. And so today we want to tell you some good news. We want to tell you some very good news. Chris Shimura is here, and she's going to tell you about how we fared in terms of our stewardship. And just a few things: 650,000 spectators, visitors from 34 states and 29 countries, 5,000 volunteers from around the world, $170 million in impact to the Commonwealth, and $5 million in tax revenue generated for the state. This was a tremendous feat, and we're very, very pleased that it was a catalyst for so many other things, such as the Capitol Trail, a catalyst for 24 dedicated miles of bike lanes in the city of Richmond. It is something that now has provided a model for other localities, and other localities are now talking about bike lanes and bike trails. And so Richmond has really pulled this thing off, and today people are not asking us if we can do great things, but they're asking us what will we do next. And so we're very happy to be here today to give you this information about the economic impact of the races. And so with that, I believe Tim is going to come up. Are you next? Come on, Tim. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tim Miller. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Richmond 2015. As the Mayor mentioned, 5 years ago, a handful of us approached the Mayor about this crazy idea to pursue this World Championships event. And there was, as he said, there was some skepticism, from him, from some others. But the more he dug into it, I think the more he realized the potential that this event had for the region. There are a lot of people that need to be thanked for what we just accomplished. Obviously, 2 governors, Tom Farrell from Dominion was critical in the success of this event. Wilson, who volunteered his time for the last 3 years. We had a great staff, but personally, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for having the vision, for lending your support, and really, obviously without you, we couldn't have even gotten this thing off the ground. And so thank you for your initial support and for enabling us to do this. Well, at this point, actually, I want to introduce Chris Shimura, who is going to review the economic impact report that they did. I would like you also to know that they did this report for us pro bono, and so it certainly represents an independent analysis of what just took place in the region. And with that, Chris Shimura from Shimura Economics.
Okay, let me just begin by summarizing, and I would say based on the number of spectators that came to this event and the amount of spending that was made during the event, this was an economic success for the region and for the state. So here you can see some of the key highlights, the direct impact, and I'll explain how we came up with these numbers as we go on. Direct impact for Richmond was almost $88 million. In Virginia, $89 million, and then we have the total impact, which includes a multiplier that I'll explain in a minute, takes it up to $162 million, and in the state, $170 million. The tax revenue based on that for Richmond metropolitan area was $3 million, and for Virginia was 4.9 million. So what I'll do here very quickly to go over the full study is to look at the economic impact in terms of where did the direct impacts come from, where was all the spending coming from, how did we estimate that, and then talk to you in closing about the broader effects. So first, where did we get the information? Basically from two sources. So the economic impact or the spending came first from the event organization. So how much did Richmond 2015 spend on this? That's information that we received from the organization itself. And then to get the visitor spending, we did an intercept survey, and I'll explain again how we did that in just a few minutes. So in both of those cases, we first have the direct impact, and then we have the indirect impact. So a way to think about it is shown here. You have the direct impact of spending this money to pull off this event, buying supplies, for example, putting up the bleachers and paying for other things. And some of that is spent in the city of Richmond, some in the metropolitan area. So that's the indirect impact. The induced impact is when people who work for Richmond 2015 or work for the suppliers spend some of their money in the region. So all of that added together is called the full economic impact of the event. So where do we get the data from? Again, as I said, Richmond 2015 provided the information on what was spent to pull off the event, and that's from 2012 to 2015. The visitor spending estimates came from an intercept survey. And by that, we literally mean that we had people who were there during the event that would intercept someone who was watching the event and would ask them some questions such as, did you come here to see this event, or were you here for some other reasons? Did you stay at a hotel, or did you stay with friends? And then we would ask them some demographic questions after that. And I'll give you some of the results of that survey, and if you want to see the full survey, it's in the full report. So first of all, on the organization side, the amount of spending over the 2012 to 2015 period was $23.2 million, and you can see here the categories where the spending occurred. Some of the spending went outside of the region, so that's what we economists will call a leakage. So some of this, like the rights fees, went outside of Richmond and the state, so that's not counted in the ripple effect. On this next page now, you see the impact of the organizing the event. The direct impact being $13 million that stayed and benefited within the region of the Richmond MSA, $13.2 billion in the state, and then with the multipliers on there, we're looking at about $23 million for the Richmond MSA and $24 for Virginia. In terms of the spectators, there were 645,000 spectators that attended this event, and that number is at the bottom. But in addition to that 645,000, we had 1,400 cyclists, about 1,100 people who supported those cyclists, 877 officials, and 696 media who were presenting information on this event on a global basis, as the governor said. That has greatly benefited the state and the region in terms of its visibility. Now for the spectator survey and just a few of the highlights there. And as the mayor has already told you, we had participants from other states in the U.S., 125 international, 49, 12% of the people who visited in our survey were from the international side. And here you can see other Virginia locations made up about 13% of the visitors that were surveyed. This number is quite high. 92% of the surveyed spectators came to Richmond primarily for the cycling event. This says that you had very good visibility in terms of the event, and only 8% were here for other reasons. For example, they might have been here for business, and they heard about the cycling event, and so they attended it. Here now, the surveyed spectators spent most of their time in the Richmond region. At the top, those who were overnight respondents stayed 5.4 days, and then all respondents about 3.4 days stayed here. 45% of the spectators that were surveyed actually were overnight visitors. So that first column gives you the 45% overnight, 55-day trippers. The second column shows you where they stayed when they were here. So 77% of those people were at hotel, motel, bed and breakfast. 16% of them stayed with family and friends. And then the other 4%, you could say, were related to internet, where they determined staying here. Average spectator watched 4.2 races. And here the way to read this is 23% of the spectators watched 2 races. But overall, the average spectator, again, watched 4.2 races. And the average spending now is shown here. So the day tripper, you can see we've broken out by lodging and food and entertainment and other attractions. The day tripper spent on average $59. And so the person who came here primarily to see the event spent on average $140, and people who came here for other reasons but decided to see the event as well spent a little less than that, $124. So the economic impact then, taking all of that information, we came up with 74.6 million on the direct impact. When we look at the total impact, that's 138.4 million for the Richmond MSA, and in Virginia, 145.9 million in terms of the spending economic impact. So when we add the two together, again, this is the slide that you saw at the beginning. You see it in the Richmond MSA, 161.5 million in terms of the economic impact, and in Virginia, nearly 170 million. So when we translate that into the fiscal or the tax revenue benefits, you see that in the state, the tax revenues, almost 5 million, and in the metropolitan area, we're looking at about 3 million for the tax revenue benefits. There are other benefits that can't be quantified but are still very important. The media exposure means that this region is being seen by many people who never even knew about the Richmond area before, potentially boosting tourism as people come here and then decide they want to come back. It could help us even in seeing expansions of businesses, as people may come here who make business decisions on expanding in the future and decide to locate in the region because of the positives that they saw here during the event. The infrastructure development that the mayor has already pointed out that is benefiting the quality of life here. And then youth programs with Richmond 2015 going to some schools and helping promoting cycling and better health. So with that, let me turn it back over to Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and truly thanks again for your contribution to providing this critically important report pro bono and contributing to the overall success of the event. The last thing I want to say is there are a lot of people asking what's next after such a successful event. I'm not here to announce anything, but I will tell you that we are exploring the possibilities. I think we've all demonstrated that Richmond is, as the mayor has already said, is capable of doing anything. So it's not a question of if we can, it's a question of if we will. So we're looking into it, and stay tuned. That concludes the programming for today. We will all stick around if you have any questions. Thanks for coming, and happy holidays to everybody.